The other part that's really wonderful about collecting buttons is how you collect them and where you put them.
You're looking at a series of buttons, and not just any buttons. These are the personal collection of Susie Smith, a button collector from Canada. She's part of the National Button Society, a little-known association that's attracting big attention.
Why don't more people know about the National Button Society? It is not a secret society. However, we have about 2,000 members across the country, more than that, almost 3,000 members across the country.
The National Button Association was started in 1938, had their first annual nationwide show in 39 in Chicago.
What is the reaction of people when you tell them that there is an organization for button collectors?
I'm trying to think of nice words to say, but it's more than just giggle, how silly. It's almost like they snort or laugh, or you've got to be kidding. And a look will go to my husband like, is she all there?
She's all there for sure, as is Susie. What's more, they have their finger and their buttons on the pulse of a hobby that can be quite lucrative, like really lucrative.
In terms of expense, the most expensive button probably 10 years ago that it sold was a little 1-inch button, a realistic shape that looked like an ear of corn. It's called lacy glass. It was made from the 1830s to the 1860s, so before our Civil War, and it sold for $55,000.
This winter, there was an auction in January. 10 buttons started out, it was an online auction at $10,000, and they ended at $28,000.
For many button collectors, it isn't about the money or the rarity. It's about personal preference.
I mean, I have a few expensive buttons that everybody should roll their eyes at, that, 1 square inch can't possibly be worth that. And then you have buttons. The buttons that are nearest and dearest to my heart are 1/2-inch buttons that are made out of pewter that cost 50 cents. And they were something worn in the Revolutionary War. And you can get them for 50 cents. Well, I can't get a plastic button at Joann's Fabrics for 50 cents.
I collect something really eclectic, and that is nuts and bolts on buttons. I mean, really, nuts and bolts on buttons, but I've got hinges, I've got a little tiny screw on a pearl button. I mean, they're really fun. So when I go to a button show, that's what I look for. It's called objects. And so that's really fun.
And button collecting's a hobby. And why do we have hobbies? Hobbies take us out of our day-to-day routine. So whether we're a stockbroker, a doctor, a veterinarian, CPA, you can take your mind and do something going absolutely sideways. So it's a release from things that are duties or have deadlines or anything. This has no deadline.
The National Button Society is growing. While trade shows and conferences are the highlight for many, online meetings have amped up since COVID, bringing more members on board from all over the world, many that stumbled upon an ancient collection in a faraway attic.
Every once in a while, you'll find someone who will say, listen, I found this in my attic, and is it valuable? And at button shows, they'll often have somebody there to evaluate them. And if they're valuable, there'll be 2 or 3 dealers coming over right away and saying, would you like to sell those?
So check your buttons, check your grandmother's buttons, and dive into a hobby that you probably never knew existed. For WPBS Weekly, I'm Jolene DeRosier.